Jemimah. I'm so excited to have you on the show, and I love that we laugh so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm already very excited about this podcast. I know it's going to be great.
Yeah, it will be, and it is. So tell my listeners a little bit, where in the world are you? Because I have an international audience and I have international guests, so we always cover that first.
So I'm in Melbourne, Australia. At the moment, currently holding on to the title of the most lockdown city in the world. So very proud of my little town. And I've been living back here since sort of the start of COVID in 2020. And before that, I was a bit of a citizen of the world and a bit of everywhere.
Yeah, I think you lived in the US once.
Yeah, I was in the US for a while. I had a Canadian working visa and Ireland for a little bit, and then Bali. And I had an amazing time, and COVID kind of got me to plant my feet for a little while.
Oh, hasn't it to all of us?
Yes, really. I'm making it like it's a big thing for me. It's really not really impacted my life that much, other than I've stayed home a little bit more than I normally would.
Yeah, it's crazy that the little virus really holds all the power in its hands. Yeah. So, okay, let's leave COVID behind and
let's
talk about you and your mission. So I was actually stalking you a little bit on Facebook.
Love that.
And I read that for 10 years you worked in the law enforcement, and then you were not allowed to be photographed, which I can understand. I have a cousin who is in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But what I thought was very interesting too, that in less than 2 years after you left there, and you had started working for yourself, you had spoken in 3 countries, you were featured in magazines, and you were interviewed and everything. So either that's why you left law enforcement, or you had to make up for 10 years of being undercover. Nah, I don't know. So what I want to know is is that always what you kind of had in mind for you, that you're with people?
No. Yeah, so that's totally true. I worked in law enforcement. It was actually 13 years that I worked in law enforcement for, and I loved it. I loved my roles, and I'm so fortunate that I got to see another side of the world in many, many ways. And I got to travel and to learn incredible things. And I worked in intelligence, and it was a really amazing job. But I got to 33 and I was tired. And I was like that in your bones tired. The thing is with law enforcement, no one's ever having a good day. You never have someone who's you never get to investigate who stole the puppies. You always have to deal with this plane got shot out of the sky, or someone's being human trafficked, or there's people smuggling occurring. And these are actual things that happened, or boats have hit coasts. And it's never, it's always you're either dealing with people who have committed offences, so offenders who are also having a bad time because they've been caught and there's a reason that they've committed these offences, and then you're dealing with the family and the family, and then you've got the community impact, which is sometimes drugs, and sometimes looking at the huge things that can really rip communities apart. And I had grown up in a law enforcement house. My family were all sort of in and around law enforcement as well. My dad was a cop for 40 years. My mum worked in the courts and in prisons. So this was very much in my blood. And I was tired, and I just took some time off. And it started so small. It honestly was such a small little moment. But I think, it's a real takeaway moment from this, of following those little whispers that your soul does. I started a tiny little jewelry business, and I was like, I'm going to learn to make jewelry. I fell in love with it. I was like, I did silversmithing. I learned how to do all of that. And when I was starting this business, I learned very quickly that I really consumed everything. I'm a little nerd, in a very obvious way. I always study. I'm always listening to audiobooks. I'm always learning. And I watched so many webinars and so many podcasts and listened to so much content that I was able to identify the forest from the trees very easy. Who was giving good advice, who gave bad advice. And then other people were asking me for business advice. And then I started giving it. And this is where my profile grew rapidly, where I was like, well, look, the jewelry business is going okay. We were on track to make 6 figures in the first couple of months. That is unheard of. Intuitively, I very much knew what I needed to do. But I learned so much, so it made sense. then I started, I'm a good talker. I'm a good writer, sorry, but I'm a better speaker. So I thought, and this is before the wave of podcasts. I was like, maybe I should do a podcast. Like that would be interesting, and I could learn and document this journey about what that would look like. Anyway, that exploded. 7 million people had eyes on it within 2 years. Like this is where it all really starts for me. So I had started a podcast, and we did a good job of that, and learned very, very quickly how to make it entertaining and how to make it approachable and how to actually give tangible takeaways, which I think is the other really big thing that people don't do in podcasts enough. And it started from there. And so it eventually push came to shove, and law enforcement, you can't have 7 million people listening to you and also working for us. And they're like, you have to choose. And I was like, see ya, I'm out. Everyone's having a good day over here. I'm going to go over there and hang out. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And it makes me a little bit speechless because it's kind of like 7 million listeners, and like that business being successful so quickly. So because what I saw now is like you help a lot of people being visible. Do you think that was that was the reason why because you just have this knowledge how to present yourself, or you have the knowledge to be visible?
Yeah, I think it was a stumble across, and this was again just trusting a little bit of the journey and going, I see how this happened. It was all very accidental. And when I say that, let's talk about the business from the start. Like I knew that you have to start at the beginning, and this is where people get this often wrong. I own a business now called the Visibility Lab, where we help people do what I did. And it was simply just getting it in the right order. And this is what we see so frequently with women, is we try one thing, and then we try another, and we try another, rather than trying to follow the story. You can't have a website without having social media. You can't have an interview if nobody knows who you are yet. Everyone starts at zero. This is the important part here as well. When we talk about my profile grew, it did. But again, we started at zero. This wasn't just a jump up to, 7 million people knowing who we were. That wasn't where it starts. It's always at zero, right? And I learned very quickly that I had to get clear on what problem I solved. I had to get clear what I was selling. I had to get clear about what I was going to be talking about. I had to be approachable. I had to, and it was all these little things like getting your social media correct and who you're communicating with, getting my personal brand on point. Who am I? If I'm turning up to an interview, I'm the same person that you meet when you see in the street. And I was very adamant about this has to be authentic. I'm not going to be someone that I'm not 85% of the time. I'm going to be exactly who I am, right? And I'm not going to change that. I'm not unapologetic in that sense. And it was about, I now need to look at how do I amplify this? Like, how do I get more eyes on this? And it was, okay, let's get some interviews. And I started hitting up podcasts. Hey, I'd love to come and have a chat with you. It was reaching out to media saying, I'd love to blog for you. And it was learning the best way for me to do that. And what I did is just really committed to 4 or 5 different actions that got me results. And that's where I think I see so many women trying different things. There was one example that I've got where we talked about Facebook ads, and someone said, oh, stand up here if you've ever done a Facebook ad, and a whole room stands up. Sit down if it didn't work, the room sits down because no one gets it right the first time. And it's like, stand back up if you run another one, and like 4 people stand up. And it's like you have to try things multiple ways to get it to work. So it's now just really about showing people how to do what I did in 5 kind of easy steps. I don't think it's I think we try to tell people it's really difficult. It's not. It's commitment, and it's 20 minutes a day. It's what we can really kind of get it down to. And it's committed activity and knowing what works for you. So for you, for example, you'd be a great speaker. Whether you want to do video every single day may not be that. So we find what works for you, and we get you to do that multiple times a day.
Yeah. So, but I want to go maybe even a step back, because I have my podcast almost 2 years. So in February, it will be 2 years.
Amazing.
I am sometimes on video, like some of the episodes are on video. So I have no problem being on video. I did lives, I did everything. I have no problem. But what I hear a lot from people, also sometimes from guests, no, I don't want to be in video, and oh my God. And so that's where I'm like wondering, do you come across people that have like they kind of want to be visible? Like I come across them, they want to be visible, but then they're terrified.
Yes, I do daily. daily. I meat incredible women all the time who are doing great stuff. And it took me a long time to realize that a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, I really tried to stay away from mindset, because I was like, oh, it's not my thing. And, I'm more like practical business advice. And I realized really quickly I was not going to be able to skip this part at all.
Yeah.
Many women, and I say women, this because I mostly work with women. I'm not excluding men from this conversation. It's very important that they're part of it, because we need their help and their allies. And I'm certainly not saying that men are immune to this, but for the sake of this podcast, we're going to talk about women in this sense. Many women are fearful about promoting their work and about being seen. And that is not by accident. We have been told from the outset that we are to sit down and be quiet and to stop rocking boats. We are called bossy, where we should be called leaders. We're called chatty when we're actually great communicators. We were conditioned from childhood to not be seen and really not really be heard either.
Yeah. And for sure not to talk about ourselves, which you kind of have to. If you're so I remember when I grew up, it was kind of like, how would you say this in English? Kind of like self praise is stinks. Kind of like self praise stinks, or something along that line,
In Australia, we have a phrase saying, you've got tickets on yourself, and it's like you think you're the best thing in the world. And it's very much tall poppy syndrome. And we, how did you go on the summit? Yeah, I did really well. And you got 97 out of 100. Like that is something that should be celebrating, not just like, oh yeah, I did really well. We were taught to downplay it. We were, if we told the truth and you're like, I don't agree with this, and this is why, well, you're being difficult. No, I'm telling you this isn't going to work, because factually this doesn't make sense. You're being difficult. I've been told multiple times that I'm too much from the sense of dating, or oh, this world that you live in is big. And I was like, and the pressure was then on me to make myself smaller, versus the man going, this isn't the right person for me. She's great, but I don't want to exist in a world where I'm going to have to deal with her being interviewed or getting photos taken of her, or all these things. And it was put on me for being too much, versus I'm actually not willing to be part of this world, or I'm not enough to be in this world. It was put on me for being too much, not actually, this is a lot.
Well, the too much is often just to be on the same, like just want to be on the same level, instead of making yourself small. And I feel so my experience was wasn't even always men. It was even sometimes coming from women too. They're also trying to, like the crab in the bucket. So as I heard, I don't know, trying to pull you down too, and kind of like, oh, that's not what a woman does, or whatever.
And this is the thing that I'm so passionate about combating and having discussions about, because it's not just men who are pulling us down each other. And let me give you an example. I had, oh my God, I've got like 10 examples that just popped into my head. I've got to pick one before I start talking to one.
Sad.
Pick one.
How sad,
and just because it's so simple, and it's just, we're almost tricked into thinking we're each other's competition. And let me explain. There was a job opportunity that I had when I was working in law enforcement, where it was this big job to work abroad. And I had been shortlisted, one of 5 people, and this job was going to pay like buy a house kind of money, pay a house off by 30 kind of money.
Mhm.
It was a really incredible opportunity. It was working in a fairly hostile environment. I was shortlisted for this job. And there was me, another girl, and 3 men on the list. And a male counterpart says to me, if they go with a woman, it's going to be between you and Emma.
Mm.
I went, oh. And a female boss overheard this, pointed at me, and kind of was like, come here, meeting room, which was the bathroom in the day. And she pulled me in. She's like, listen to me very carefully. And this is, write this down, guys, if you can. The conversation she said to me, she looked me dead in the eye and she's like, you are not in competition with Emma. You're in competition with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't about Emma and I being against each other. It was about me and everyone on that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He focused on the other woman's competition. And what's worse is I bought it straight away. So it's these little things where we don't consciously realize we're trying to bring other women down. The other thing that we've kind of been told is that success is finite. That if I'm successful, and if I've got this many listeners or I have this many followers or I'm making this much money, that's less for you. And that's not the case. We have been almost like there's meant to be success scarcity around women. Like, because there's 8 speakers and only 2 of them are women. You guys are in competition. You're not in competition with the 2 women. You're in competition with everybody.
If you're even in competition. I mean, this is the other question. Are we really in competition?
Well, I say no, because success isn't finite.
Yeah.
And it's not a pie. Just because I get a bigger piece doesn't mean you don't get any.
Yeah.
And I think we need to stop looking at women. I think there are a lot of women that have done a disservice to particularly business and coaching and this kind of role and building entrepreneurship up, because it's come out later that, maybe not as all of what it seemed. What we have to do is recognize we have to support each other.
Yeah.
And not tear each other down.
Yeah, I agree. And but I do feel like it might be, so I remember when I grew up, it was still harder. Like, it's getting better. We can kind of see it is getting better. It's so socialized in us that we sometimes, like you just said, we don't even realize it. Maybe like not everybody is just hostile. Sometimes we don't realize it, and it's now getting better and getting better. But the more, what I notice is sometimes is like, you can't even, like, the feminist is now kind of like a, you might as well say the F word sometimes, like the other F word, and it's not even that you want to be better than men, or you just kind of want to have your own opportunities and your own, you can, like you said something earlier, you said you didn't want to pretend to be somebody that you're not, you wanted to be authentic. And a lot of women don't even know what that is, because we were so kind of stifled, maybe even, or just raised to be quiet and be servants rather than being leaders, that you don't even know who you are authentically,
I could spend, literally, I'm working on my second book at the moment, and this is what it's talking about. It's like, how did we get here? And it's not an easy answer for how this all happened and how we got here. Suffice to say, short version, the church has a lot to do with it. Witches, we talk about witches being burnt at the stake, and 4 million witches were burnt. No, they were women who were smart and funny and kind and supportive, and learnt about naturopathy and learnt how to support other women, and were, who were gay, who were just smarter. Like, one woman was I was reading this the other day. I'm going to totally derail this interview just by talking about this. Stay with me. I promise I'll come back. One woman was hung because her wit was greater of her neighbor. She was smart and she was funny, so she was killed. This is what happened. And so women, if we talk about the behavior that we model, I'm in a generation now as an elder millennial now, for the first time, my grandmother needed her husband's permission to have a bank account. My mother in Australia, and even in Australia, did not need to have superannuation or the American 401k. They didn't need to put money aside. She didn't. She was like, well, I can have $100 extra now, or without realizing.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time ever, we're in a place at the moment where women can make active choices about choosing to have children, not having children at all, choosing to have children, and financially being fine either way.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a position where starting a business has never been easier.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also in a time when miscommunication is more rampant than we've ever seen it any other time. So when we talk about feminism as being this dangerous kind of thing, the only thing, and this is so important because this is again how women are being manipulated against each other, feminism is only the act of me having equal right than anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not asking, and men, if you're listening, just be grateful we're not asking for revenge here or payback. I just want to have an equal opportunity, and I still don't. Yeah. I'm still being paid 32 cents less than you on average. Mm-hmm. I'm still, even though I have superannuation, if I go and have a child, I'm still going to be over $200,000 less than you at the end of my career because I had a child. I'm still financially more, in debt. We have, it's so interesting for me because we have a workforce at the moment, and this is a US study I was reading the other day, where 42% of women in households are working or single mothers who are either contributing in the house or are the sole breadwinner. And yet we talk about women being these weak individuals. Name one woman that you know right now that's weak.
Yeah, it's sad. And just to blow your mind, Switzerland just celebrated last year that finally 50 years ago women could vote,
Yeah, this is most people's lifetime.
I was alive already when they couldn't vote yet, and then they were allowed to vote finally 50 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, we have a way to go. we have some work still need to be done, and this is part of the conversation that I just want to have with people about, yes, it is hard to own your power and to stand up and be like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and I'm okay with this. I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to do, but it's actually also not about you in many ways. If we talk about this being 50 years ago, 60 to 70 years ago, people were fighting for that right. Women were fighting for that right.
Yeah.
It's not about, some of the conversations I have to have, I'm like, it would just be so much easier if I was so much happier just stacking shelves at a supermarket, and that was what I wanted to do. Because I wouldn't be called names on the internet, and I wouldn't have people messaging me like, well, my boss said this, what do I do? And I love that, don't get me wrong, but it would be easier if I didn't want to have these fights. But in many ways, it's not about me, and it's never going to be about me.
No.
It's the future generations that I owe this responsibility to, of I'm not allowing from someone who doesn't want to have children. Let me be clear on this. My nieces, as they get older, and my nephews who will marry women, and for future women everywhere, I owe myself in this time to stop and be like, look at what you're doing, and calling out crappy behavior and being like, this thing that we've always done isn't serving people.
Yeah. No, it needs people like you, definitely. So what I also read was that you were presenting at the Women in Leadership Conference, I have to say that right. And then you talked about that women are the future in business. So talk a little bit about that, because I know now we're still in the minority owning businesses. We're still for sure in the minority of owning profitable and great businesses. But you said back then that women are the future in business. So what do you see for us in store?
So this comes from a broader, again, how I said I was a nerd earlier. Here we go. Yeah. Off we go.
That's why you're on.
So the World Health Organization estimated that 97% of female-led businesses will fail in the first 5 years. Big reason for that is called invisible tasking. And it's one of the biggest reasons that we struggle at the moment for women to make headway. So what I mean by invisible tasking, 75% of all household items, and this is if you have a partner, and if you don't have a partner, it's 100% on you. 75% of all responsibilities fall onto women. on average. And this is for good marriages, right? Like, this is normal. This isn't abusive. This isn't being controlled. And this isn't where everything's just given to you. This is little things like the kids will come to you first when they want something and not dad. You will be responsible for buying 75% of all groceries, Christmas presents, birthday presents. You will be responsible for 75% of all cleaning duties, for putting the dishwasher on, for unpacking the dishwasher, for taking the dog to the vet. These things independently aren't a lot. But when you add them up over the course of a day, we are talking hours that you are sinking into other things, not your business. So what happens is women are, and and let's just use normal business statistics, 2 years before you're going to turn a profit in business, before you'll be profitable. Like, I'm not saying you won't see money or revenue coming in the first 2 years. You will see that, but to make money, something's got to give at some point in that. If you are maintaining a full-time job and having children and doing 75% of all household duties, and you're trying to do a business on the side and grow this, after 1 year, when you're not seeing a turnaround, when you're trying ad hoc things because you can't get focused on something for long enough to do anything here, something's got to give. Your business will be the first thing to grow. So why I talk about
because if I just kind of jump in real quick, because you're also told you're selfish if you're a mother and you want to have a business next to it. Have you ever heard a guy or a father be called selfish if you have a business? So
who do you think you are? Why is motherhood not enough for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is, preparing 3 meals a day not a joy? Are you kidding? I was in lockdown. By day one, I was like, oh man, I'm going to cook a roast. I'm going to have like creme brulee for dessert. By day 4, I was like, why am I eating all the time? All I was doing was preparing meals, right? So I didn't realize how much food I was eating, and like, it was bananas. The question becomes, for women who are doing, like, they have to be superheroes, right? To do all of this stuff. And then you have these incredible women who are doing things, and then you are being told by society that when your children aren't bringing you joy, it's called the happiness trap. It's a real thing that we are told, like, when you have kids, it's gonna be the best thing in the world. You are more likely to get divorced. You are more likely to separate. One of you is more likely to have an affair. You are going to be more sleep deprived. You're going to have less money than you had before, and you're going to have a life that you didn't necessarily agree to. A lot of women now, we have a choice. Lots of ways of being a parent without being a parent, or lots of ways of never becoming a parent if you don't want to.
Yeah, we have to always remember that the role we play now is what the children pick up. No, it's not necessarily what we're talking. It's also what we're the role we're playing, or with what we're satisfied with. So,
and using Queer Eye as the example, that little kid who's getting nutritious meals, what lesson is that giving them? That mummy, that my, and I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but this is a role I must play as a girl or as a male of, oh, well, this is what my wife will do for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I mean. These are all these subtle things that come without even being said, because if it would be said in your face, you could actually say something against it, but because it's so subtle, it's kind of like
you don't even notice it, and it's just we then agree that it's okay. It's not okay. It's all right that if you're not coping with it. It's all right that if you're doing the 8-hour work week and having kids and doing 75% of the invisible tasking and a 40-hour work week and trying to run a business, and right now and you're feeling like this is impossible, it's because it is, and it's designed to be impossible.
So, but you're still saying that women are the future in business. So you're thinking it's changing, do you think, or do you have tips how women can become A, more visible, B, stronger in that, like the wave that comes against us?
100%. The first thing that you need to do is get a community around you and build a high level personal network. I'm going to give you some real rapid fire tips here. You need to have women around you who get it. If you're not in a circle, if you were the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. First tip. You need to have women around you who you can learn from and can, whatever you're trying to do. Firstly, let me just go back, like, let's just take one step back before I go on to this rant. If you're listening to this stuff right now and you're like, I know I want more and I feel guilty for it, it's okay. that you are looking at this and being like, I want to do more than be a mum, be a wife, be a partner, do my full-time job. You don't owe an explanation to anyone. And that is a near impossible thing to get your head around if you are not around women who get it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting with women, sitting with warriors, the conversation's different. If you're sitting with women who are challenging the patriarchy in the very literal sense of the word, that are challenging the patriarchy, who are doing cool stuff, you have a problem if you are not in those rooms. Because the only people that you're going to be bumping up against are going to be people who are solidifying that traditional role. You need to get around a community of strong, funny, independent women who are trying to do the stuff that you want to do. So the first thing is get a really good network around you. That could be a coaching program, that can be listening to podcasts like this. There is a really great theory called the Sum of Five People from Jim Rohn, who's arguably the founder of personal development. And I urge you to go and have a read about what that means. You can have a 5 people around you in person and 5 people online. So find people online. If you can't hang out with Brene Brown, like I hang out with her every other day, by reading her books, by listening to what she's saying, by listening, by consuming that content, by understanding that, I get to have that, that high level network around me. 2, you need to get really clear on what you want to do. It's great to want to do something different. What do you want? And be honest about it.
Yeah.
And it should sound bad. I can't stress this enough, that to sit there and go, I want to build a profile so I can help other mums realize they want more. That's fine. That's great. Is that all you want? Do you want to be a best-selling author? It's okay to want that stuff, because we've been told to not want it because it's not enough. It's too much. You're already a mum. You got the things you wanted. You got the ring. You got the husband. You got the house. You got the dog. You got the perfect life. You're allowed to want to write a book too. It's okay.
Yeah.
When you're around the right people. So, and then from that, you have to figure out what you're going to do and work towards that every day. That's where the social media comes in. That's where you need to start getting on podcasts. You need to start doing that stuff, and tons of downloadables. And I'm sure we'll link them in comments below and everything. And that free resources, go and get them all. I've got tons of awards that you can look at, how to get media releases, how to start blogging, how to start writing a book.
Yeah.
All
And
the
so
stuff's allowed.
So I'm thinking, so the way I understood, you're actually also helping women do this in your
100%.
lab. So brag a little bit about your lab and what all you do and what results women get when they work with you.
Yeah, so Visibility Lab is my business. It's what I do. I literally teach women how to do this, what we're talking about here. And it's, again, we've created a network. So a litmus test for joining is really simple. Would you want to have would I let you basically stay at my house if you're in the city that I'm in? Would you come and hang out? Would I be cool with that? And are you bringing stuff into the room? Like, are you bringing ideas and fierceness and all this sort of stuff? So, and what we do is we start really basic. The Visibility Lab specializes in helping people, grow their personal brand. Who are you? What do you want to do? Get clear on your goals, get goal setting done, and then helping you actively work towards that. The reason that we use the word lab is because it's not a one size fits all approach. You might want to start a podcast versus writing a book. You might want to only get paid to speak from stage. That's fine too. Let's show you how to do that. Let's get you in that. We are the experts in helping you get massive exposure very quickly and in an authentic way that sits well with you. Where have we been seen? I had to pull a list up because it's gotten a little out of control. We're 7 days in to 2022. And we've already got a channel, an Australian Channel 9 real estate correspondent role. So we've got someone who's going to be starting as a full-time kind of person speaking journalist and being the expert for a whole TV show here, a whole TV channel here, which is, hundreds of shows. Huffington Post, Collective Hub, Business Chicks, Business Builders, Smart Company, The Australian, Marie Claire, Femme Economy, BuzzFeed, Women's Fitness, Mamma Mia, Thank You, My Body, My Soul, Hamish Needy, Ticker TV, The Modern, Qantas, Pedestrian, Foxtel, Wim. There's just a few of our wins. They're my wins, actually. That's ones that I've done for myself. And we have, last year, I think we had something like 180 podcast interviews collectively in the group. We had paid speaking keynotes, which is pretty interesting, and international ones, considering everything was taken to being on Zoom. We've had CDs released. We've had some incredible wins. So It's about getting you in. The question is, what problem do you solve? Who do you solve that problem for? And how do we get you in front of those people every day?
Yeah, I think it's so awesome and so needed for women. So if somebody wanted to find out more, where should they go? Where would you send them? To your website or to your
website's 100% the place to go. There is a whole page of free stuff. Go and get it. Like, go, we are not making this hidden from anyone. This is super easy, accessible information. And super affordable for people who want to be part of this, because there's no point offering it and then being like, it's really hard to get into. We want cool people to be doing cool stuff. Awesome. Come find us, jemimahashleigh.com, visibilitylab.co. I'm super easy to find.
Yeah, I'm for sure I'll put the links in the show notes, of course, so people can just, wherever they listen to this, scroll down and get all the links and everything.
Oh, goodness, please.
Whether you have any last words of wisdom or something that you want to leave us with today after what all we talked about already.
I'm going to leave you with just the simple idea that you owe it to yourself and to the people around you to step up and be who you are. You have answers to problems that people are looking for. You have talents and skills that you are not using. And it is a disservice to yourself and to other people around you if you aren't doing something with that. You have the solution to so many people's problems. Who are you not to step into that and be like, yeah, this is what I'm good at. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself and to everyone else around you. And, and in a very real sense, we get such a finite time amount on this planet. Like, it is, if you lay out the universe, the timeline of events, we are humans are less than a second. Humans, not just one person, humans are less than a second. Like, this is fleeting, and it is tiny, and it is, we're all going to die at some point. You have to make this count for something, and your legacy has to be something bigger than, I wish I'd done more on your deathbed. Like, you have to do more than that. You owe it to yourself and the people around you and the future generations.
Thanks so much, Jemimah. Thanks so much for coming here and sharing your journey and your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great. I love talking about this stuff. I honestly could be here all day. Thank you so much for having me.